Hello! We are the Inclusion Collaborative, and we are here to let you know all about our inclusion support Warmline.
Our Warmline offers free support and information for students of all ages and all abilities.
Nuestro servicio de Warmline ofrece asistencia e información gratuitas para estudiantes de todas las edades y todas las habilidades.
We provide customized support and strategies to meet your needs.
Brindamos apoyo y estrategias personalizadas para satisfacer sus necesidades.
In areas of remote learning,
En áreas de aprendizaje a distancia,
positive behavior supports,
apoyo de comportamiento positivo,
visual supports,
apoyos visuales,
social stories,
historias sociales,
universal design for learning,
diseño universal para el aprendizaje,
homeschool schedules, etc.
radios de educación en el hogar, etc.
Whether you're a parent or a teacher,
Ya sea usted un maestro o padre de familia,
if you have questions, give us a call or email us.
si tiene preguntas, llámenos o envíe un correo electrónico.
Remember, we are here to support you.
Recuerde, estamos aquí para apoyarle.
Hi, I'm Nichole Salles-Cunha. I'm the former TOSA for our Inclusive Practices School and currently a principal at Duncan Holbert School. And with me in this room, 6 feet apart, are Jackie Medina, who's the principal at Starlight Elementary, and Laura Smith, who's the principal at Radcliffe Elementary.
Okay. I'm gonna do my Facebook thing. I'll do it there.
Is this here? Yeah.
That's fine. Elaine, actually, this is you. I'm sorry. Elaine, you're the outcome. Oh, that's for us. Okay, just give me a little thumbs up if you can, or just say, yes, I can hear you. Okay, so good morning, everybody. Again, this is Elaine. I'm the principal at Ansoldo. Just wanted to review our outcomes with you today. At the end of the presentation, you will be able to have seen our journey through the development of inclusive practices at 3 of our elementary school sites. You'll be provided with our professional development plan, and, to the roadmap of implementation, planning, and assessment of implementation outcomes. And you'll get to hear from site administrators, teachers, district administrators, those of us that have been doing it, and we'll be sharing what worked and what we would, we're going to continue to do differently as we move forward with our implementation at our sites.
Students is the instant that they will not have as many learning opportunities as their peers. And with that, I want to introduce Laura, who's going to go over who we are as a district.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Laura Smith, and I am principal at Radcliffe Elementary. So just to give you a little background on our district, Pajaro Valley consists of over 20,000 students. 66% of our students are English learners. 81% of our students are students in poverty, and 16% of our students are students without permanent homes. 10% of our students are migrant, and 14% are in special education. And as you can see, we're really working on our growth. We have our elementary and middle school, a little bit of data here. We've had 100% of our second grade approaching 2 years growth with the MAP testing, and 60% for both, 69%, excuse me, for both third and fourth grade approaching 2 years growth in reading. And in mathematics, we have 100% of our second graders approaching 2 years growth, and about 94% of our third graders, and then our sixth graders about 40%. And to give you a bit of background on the school I'm at, which is Radcliffe Elementary, we have 461 students. 82% of them are ELs, and 91% are socioeconomically disadvantaged. And now I'm going to introduce Jackie Medina, who is the principal at Starlight.
Good morning, everybody. I hope you're doing really well. As Laura mentioned, I'm Jackie Medina, the principal of Starlight Elementary School. We're a TK through fifth grade school, and some things that are unique about Starlight is the year before last, we had 2 special day classes, so one primary, one intermediate, plus an RSP program. We converted all of those programs into the Learning Center model, full inclusion, last year. And we have, nearly 100% of our students qualify for free and reduced lunches. Our student population is about 540. And another unique component of our school is we're a dual language school. So all the way through fifth grade, we offer dual language. And Elaine Parker will speak about her school and photo. Thank you.
We last year, if you will, dismantled our K-2 SDC program, and all of those students were part of the general education, and you'll hear, but that was quite wonderful and successful for all of us. We're a K-3 early exit bilingual school, so at 4th and 5th grade, students are receiving instruction purely in English, and then depending on the program choice, they may have been in bilingual. For the primary grades, we are very data-driven. We have a leadership team that over the years has morphed and is now really our MTSS leadership team that's using Swift data, and it's looking even different this year in distance learning, so that's more again. We have strong PVUSD implementation and a lot of partnerships with some folks around the community, such as Life Lab. A really strong connection with fellow principals and LC schools, in addition to Gerri really being a strong partner in the success, and Nichole and TOSA's as well. So that's a little bit about the AMSOLDO All-Stars. Okay, so we're going to talk a little about what we call year 0. And year 0 was really our planning year. And The planning year was my first year in the district as a special education director here in the district. And we spent quite a bit of time trying to pick the right schools to implement full inclusive practice schools. We call them learning center sites at our school district, but we're really moving to kind of into the more inclusive practices vocabulary. So some steps that we took to pick these 3 amazing principals / schools to be a part of this project. We interviewed and we had conversations with site admin. We had a lot of conversations with site admin to make sure that this was a good fit for their school. We really had to look at the implementation of PVIS. We had to have a solid foundation for PVIS and behavior at a site for this to work. And then the schools needed to be super data driven so we could understand where resources, where interventions, services, behavior services, kind of all of the above where that fit in. And then we also needed to ensure that the sites had very strong leadership teams because this is a full approach. It is really focused on the MTSS model of full implementation of students and services. So we needed to ensure that those campuses were solid and the teachers as well as the admin were engaged and involved. So how did we plan and who did we work with? I'm going to share this one with Nichole a little bit. I'm going to talk a little bit about the front and then she's going to talk about her involvement in the master schedule. So we worked with the teams and we completed the SWIFT, which is the MTSS rubric for implementation. And we'll go into that a little bit later. We'll also, and we developed goals for every site. Once we developed those goals and we met with the leadership teams, we determined what our game plan was and kind of our year at a glance. And then we hired a TOSA that just really focused on our learning centers in support of that. So I'm going to let Nichole talk a little bit about the collaboration and the master schedule involvement.
Thank you, Jay. So one of the things that I think helped us be really successful was really involved in the stuff. And so I'm a teacher at Radcliffe Elementary, and I was able to be part of the year 0 planning and part of that was the master schedule, and as well as working with COSAs and participating in Swift, all of those things really helped contribute to us being successful as we move into implementation. Now we can move off to Gerri again to talk about the Swift.
So the SWIFT, if you guys are familiar with it, is the MTSS model for framework for developing school-wide systems for MTSS. And so as a district, we are embarking on MTSS as a district. And these 3 school sites for elementary are really where we're doing the majority of our implementation to figure out the bumps in the road and what works and what doesn't work. So we went through the SWIFT with every site, and what we did is we brought the leadership teams together twice last year, and we went through every single goal and re-ranked the goals and where the teams felt that the schools were at. From there, we developed 3 to 5 goals per site to really focus on, and those focuses are where we started kind of our work for year 1. So it was a really important process for us to do. So we had a baseline and we had a data baseline of how that would work. In the presentation that I've given you on the platform, there's videos and so forth that you can watch as well. I'm going to hand it over to Nichole.
Hi. So after we've kind of give you a really quick overview of our year 1, our planning year to prepare for full inclusion. We thought we'd give you an opportunity to use a mind map and think about or reflect of a school site or your site and where you're at in implementing inclusive practices. And we provided one here for you. And we can put the link in the chat if you can, or if you have the presentation, you can just click on it and it will have you force copy the mind map. And in that, you can use a doc of your own, of course, if you'd like. And they're thinking about like what kind of discussions you would have with your admin teams or who would support, identifying people that you think would be a good fit, or positions you think would be a good fit, and perhaps listing examples of indicators that they might be ready in these areas. So we're going to give you 3 minutes to just do a little self-reflection and mind map and application, and I'll start that now. Okay, now do you want to close with your thought now? And we're going to transition over to year 1 with Michelle introducing.
When you start out with year 1 of implementation, probably the most important thing is building those relationships at all different levels, between admin and special education admin, between special education teachers, special ed teachers, and between classified staff and all of the teachers that are they're going to be working with. Joke a lot about it being like a marriage, but it really is. You are introducing all of these different people who are used to kind of working in isolation, and you're putting them all together to work on this common purpose, co-teaching and inclusion. So it becomes a really big key to develop those relationships right at the beginning, putting in lots of opportunities and time, really even starting in year 0, time to build those relationships so that things move smoothly when you are in the classroom. I'm going to hand it over to Nichole now to talk a little bit more about our process.
Framed our professional development, our planning, and our continuous learning really is around the building teams and relationships component, the co-teaching component, and just, you know, deciding what works for each team, because no one team is alike, and then the professional development part. So as a TOSA, I supported with professional development, as well as received my own professional development, where I was getting trained as a coach and mentor, simultaneously as training and coaching UDL. And then we were also partnered with the Inclusive Collaborative in training UDL with our administrators and special educators. So we focused that part on the instructional piece of, and then the team building. We came together oftentimes as the 3 schools and had PD together as a learning center community, and then separately, as well as making sure that we emphasize the importance of the teams, the co-teaching teams and grade level teams having their time together in collaboration and opportunities to explore what works for them and what's working in the reflective practice on their data. And I came alongside them to support them in that, as well as, just helped coordinate between admin and their co-teachers of what we were doing, what we were working on, and where we were going to in our next steps. So in our next slide, Gerri's going to kind of talk about the tiers of our professional development.
So in PD, we determined that we really need to look at the very different groupings for professional development in order to make this successful. So we had our administrative and district office and site team. So I met with the principals on a monthly basis, and we had a brain dump, I would consider it. We talked about kind of anything and everything that was going on to make this successful, as well as, of course, the challenges, right? As your first year of implementation, and all of the schools making their SDC classes into the general education classroom, we of course had challenges. We had staffing challenges, we had master schedule challenges, we had curriculum challenges, we had services challenges. So it was a constant conversation in PD of how do we modify this to make this work, or how do we set this goal differently so that this kiddo is more successful. The part that was always the same throughout the tiers of our professional development was that it was always student-centered and always data-driven. And so when we talk about the different peers, we were always talking about groups of kids, individual kids, lots of times. The individual, as we all know, that could blow up everything, right? So we were constantly talking through that. So we had the administrative PD kind of role. We also did some book studies together on UDL, as well as through the inclusive practice, through the inclusive collaborative. We had our special education teachers, which we call our learning center or ed specialist. They did PD once a month, as well as some longer PD days as well. We had our co-teaching teams that we were lucky enough last year that every co-teaching team with their gen ed teacher and their learning center teacher, their special education teacher, they had time every month within our instructional day for them to plan and work together. We really wanted to make the time that they had together not extra time, and time that was built in. And then we also did a bunch of school-wide training within the general education curriculum on inclusive practices. What does it mean to be an inclusive school, MTSS, our goals, and so forth. And then like Nichole did, we really wanted Nichole to be our master of minds, I guess, or the master of professional development. And so she went through a lot of professional development for UDL, co-teaching, as well as inclusive practices last year. So we used a couple different major, we had to narrow our focus in regards to who was going to be providing the PD. So the 30 days into the co-teaching classroom, I have no stock in this book by any means, but I think we found it pretty helpful, and a lot of the forms helped guide a lot of the teams, at least to get us started. It's a great book to get teams started. I don't think that our team now, where we're at now, would utilize it as much, but I think a lot of the structures we still continue to use. But it was a great way to talk about, like Jill said, the marriage of the teams. Because it's tricky to have two people in a classroom that you used to just have one, and being able to find that that pattern within a classroom to support the kiddos and not stepping on each other, just like many of us in our households, right? How do we not step on each other and make it all successful? So we did that. We also did a lot of walkthroughs, and we did a lot of on-site training, which I thought was probably the most helpful. We would walk through a classroom, we kind of talk through what was going on.
And then we bring the teams back and we'd be like, well, what about this? Or what about structuring it this way? And we did that about 5 times last year as a team. And that was, I think, probably some of the most important PD is when we're actually in the classrooms giving feedback and supporting. We also did, through the Inclusive Collaborative, they helped us with those walkthroughs. So they came through and we partnered with them and they supported that. They also supported us with all of our LC teachers and administrators getting, as well as district office and TOSA, getting our UDL certificate, as well as some coaching support. We did a lot of coaching support with them. Then finally, we did additional UDL training through Kate Novak. We did some book studies, and then we did many of her online courses. And we're looking to continue to partner with her as we move forward. I'm going to turn it over to Jackie.
Nichole have already mentioned it's all about relationships. So for Starlight last year, the Learning Center model was really a bright spot at our school. You know, we have a lot of great things going on, but this was something that we felt really proud of. And I think that in part is because we are a strong PBIS school, we have a strong implementation. We've always had a strong collaborative spirit, but some of the things that the LC model brought to our school really enhanced these relationships. One thing that we did that was unique and wonderful to the implementation is each month we were able to provide a collaboration time built into the day for the general ed and the special ed teacher to meet. They met for about an hour and a half each month to talk about how things are going, do some of their planning. They also met informally, continuously every week, almost multiple times a week. But this structured time built in was really a big point for their success. Also, the entire team, so our whole LC team, would meet with district level personnel such as Gerri, or with our TOSA such as Nichole, and we were constantly refining our program. And echoing. Okay, that's better. Also, we had a TOSA, the district office provided a TOSA specific to our LC program. So that was really helpful when we were looking at, first, you know, it was the relationship, but when rubber hit the road and we were trying to have high academic success with all of our students in our generalized class, the TOSAs were able to really look at the curriculum and support the teachers on how to get access to all of our diverse learners. We had a behaviorist support, ongoing instructional coaching, and in each of the 3 schools were quite different. We all had different successes and different challenges. And so the team, that was the coaching team, the TOSAs, the behaviorists, all of the support that we had really met each team where they were at and focused on what their needs were. So it was differentiated, if you'd say. And then we're talking about adult relationships, but something else worth mentioning is the student social relationships was one of the first things that we saw as a highlight, as a bright spot, is students who previously were in, you know, in a segregated section of the school are now generalized. And so we saw that on the playground, in our talent shows, and it was really kind of like the first phase of full inclusion and full integration of all students, and it was a beautiful thing. Thank you. And so next presenting will be.
All right, so I wanted to talk a little bit about the importance of teams working together. So as we went into the year, we had an opportunity right before school started for all of the co-teachers, the special education teachers, and the general ed teachers to collaborate for a full day before school even started. So we went in with some really solid planning time, and then throughout the year having this weekly collaboration, monthly collaboration, class coaching, and working on their SWIFT goals together. And those things work together to help continue to build those relationships. But I also wanted to say that, like, when we're working on those relationships, we're coming in as a special education teacher into a different classroom for me, the mindset that I had to come in with was a mindset of humility. Like, I work in multiple classes, and if I came in as a bulldozer, just I'm going to do this, we're going to do it my way, it would never have worked. It had to be a really good partnership, and I had to come in and learn how to work with each different teacher. Just like we as special education teachers have to learn how to work with each individual student and their needs, I approached it in the same way. I knew how to work with each teacher. So I think that was really helped me come to the fantastic experience as a good teacher and continue to do that. And I'm going to pass it over to Nichole to kind of finish up on that.
Thanks, Michelle. Michelle, I might come back to you because there's a question about pivoting the structure for distance learning, and we definitely will touch on that. But the next activity, just to prepare you for, front load you for, would be another mind map for year one. And in this one, use the mind map or your own method and focus on your thoughts and potential ideas and curiosities that come to mind around relationships, professional development, reflective practices, continuous learning. The mind map that I provided for you has a lot of the people that were involved in this process. And as you're thinking about your students and your school site culture, like what this might look like for you moving forward. But Michelle, if you don't mind, maybe just talking about what happened in spring when we shifted right to distance learning abruptly, and then maybe the difference of how you were able to prepare going for the fall this year.
Absolutely. So for all of us, it was kind of a shock to the system to go from in-person to distance learning. My role in this spring was really just trying to do everything I could to create access and trying to be really aware of all the different ways that we can help our kids be successful. We were doing a lot of synchronous learning at that point, and so I was doing a lot of partnering and planning with the teachers. I actually took a piece of the academic planning and would do that for the whole grade level, just trying to collaborate on that. As we moved into this year, based on our relationships from the previous year, I'm co-teaching with a lot of the same people. And so we've jumped kind of back in with centers. They look a little different, obviously, because the kids are rotating between different school meets, but we're actually doing full centers, kind of on the same schedule that we would have during the school year. Does that answer the question, or is there a follow-up?
Okay, we'll give you 3 minutes to explore or reflect on the second mind map for year one in the areas of relationships, number 1, professional development, reflective practices, and then continuous learning. So that will start now. All right, we're going to bring it back to year 2 and just briefly touch on what's going on right now and what's up next. And Gerri's going to take that over.
So, like Nichole said, we had to drastically shift like the rest of the world last spring, and definitely was not in our initial plan when we started last year. So when we were in spring, we were charged with both being in distance learning as well as continuing to plan, because we didn't want our speed of what we were doing to stop. And I think as an administrative team, we all were in agreement with that we wanted to make sure that this continued. We were seeing such great with our kiddos, with relationships, with scores, that nobody wanted to see any of this stop. So we had to plan kind of two directions last spring. We had to plan for distance learning, as well as we had to plan for what if not and how do we keep continuing. And so every time I meet with the admin team, every time we meet with the teachers, we have two conversations of this is how it is during distance learning, this is how it is when we come back, and we didn't want to lose the structure for that. So like Nichole said, she's in classrooms again, she's pushing through that right now. She still has her time with her special to work on goals, but she is in those classrooms, she is co-teaching, she is working through those, the same structure and the same schedules. So when we plan for year 2, which is this year for us, these are some of the things that we talked about. We're kind of shifting the way we look at data for kids and what interventions. One thing that we didn't talk too much about is how we use intervention staff as well as our classified staff. We became one big system. It was no longer, this is the special education world, and this is the general education intervention world. We combined all people, all services to meet all kids' needs. So by doing that, that drastically changed the master schedule, and we learned what worked and what didn't work, right? So we took those, and when we were developing our master schedule, I'll let Elaine talk a little bit, but one of the things that Ansel talked a lot about is departmentalizing these upper grades to support kind of some of those structures. We also, we had to really talk about our calendars, because in order to fit everything in that needs to occur, we have to be super organized and strategic with our time, because nobody has extra time, right? So we really worked through our calendars. We did a lot of planning in the spring for what our calendars would look like this year, for meetings, for professional development, for our continuing collaboration. All of those things were planned out last spring. We had to work with all 3 sites to make sure that that worked for everybody, because when we go back in person, we have what we call early start and late start schools. So our times are different. So we can't necessarily do everything at the same time for different schools. So that's also been something that we talk about. And then we talk about what's actually happening right now. So we stop, regroup, we have to pivot, we adapt to distance learning. And we've done a lot of conversation about that. We've done some book studies of the district. We've done an incredible job of ensuring that everybody has technology, that we have training for our teachers. We've set up where all of our kiddos are getting teletherapy services across the board. Every child is getting service right now. And we plan to continue those inclusive practices in this model, as well as we have, like I said, the other model ready to go when we come back. So we didn't stop our learning, we just continued it in a different way. And we took what we learned last year and we really pivoted on that. So I'm gonna let Elaine talk a little bit more about how she planned for this year and some positives and negatives.
Cohesive, but my notes now are all scattered and full because I've run across other things that I want to say. So I'm going to talk about year 2, but also about some of the challenges and successes along the way. And Michelle talked a lot about the marriage, and you know, we had some divorces last year. I'll be really honest with you. And within, marriage, obviously compromising and listening and all of those skill sets were very much necessary as we negotiated and cried at times, and cried also of joy as we watched some of our students who had been in an SDC class since kindergarten run freely on the playground and share their ideas about math problems like we had never seen before. It gives me goosebumps even right now to think about that group who I saw as kindergartners in an SDC class that are now in the general ed classroom, functioning really well and with confidence in fourth grade. So part of what I had to do as the principal was make some difficult decisions about staffing and not bring people back and release people in the middle of the year, which is really hard. But in my tenure as principals, I have non-reelected staff members, and it is very challenging, but it's something that we have to do for our students because they deserve to have the right people in the right places. And it's really challenging because staff might be feeling frustrated and not know that you're working by person things to others, but you have to have faith that you're going to get through it. I remember sitting in a meeting with Nichole where we were planning and really respectfully and thoughtfully asked her if she wouldn't mind stepping out so that I could talk frankly about something, but wanted to protect her in her role. And I'm reminded of how gracefully she handled that every time I see her, and that built rapport in terms of what I can sit here and say honestly to you right now. So staffing is huge, having the right people in the right places for that general ed teacher who is getting used to having a new person in their zone, a new person to communicate with, a new person who's taking a lead and or a back seat in the classroom. So those are really, really important things to have in place for the success of the marriage. We also we have a very tenacious, quote, former RSP teacher who also had to deal with compromise and working with different people and experiencing her role changing and what that meant like, and not feeling like she had her own classroom and then she had to work with different people. So she even started this school year thinking one thing, and we shifted grade levels on her, and it was hard for her, but then she embraced it and took it and loves it. So we did talk about departmentalizing, like Gerri referred to. We had to have some serious talks around that. We have some strong union contractual things that we have had to deal with over the years. And it came forward as we were implementing. So we worked with our union, I worked with HR, and we did let's see if I can remember where I was going with this. RSP. Oh, so we talked about departmentalizing, and we really did have people close to being on board in the upper grades. They really were understanding how they would benefit from it. It was a new adoption year for us in language arts. And we had the plan to move forward, and then we went to distance learning. So, again, as Gerri said, we pivoted. Our programs are running really well right now. If you would come and visit the distance learning in our 3rd and 4th grade classrooms and watching the collaboration between 2 and 3 different staff members and how they lead in and out of each other and use our PVUSD strategies and our class dojo points, and instructionally, like, the partnerships are solid right now, and it's actually working with distance learning in a way that maybe didn't imagine. So going through those hard things, having the difficult conversations, coming up with solutions, adjusting along the way, and the right staff members in place are key components. And as a principal, also trying to find voice and choice, but then also really needing to say, no, we're doing it this way because I have the balcony view. So there's always that balance of input and just kind of, telling people what the directions are. So sorry, that was a lot of little notes there. I think I got everything. And I'm free to answer any more individual questions as you have them either in this or as follow-up afterwards. And I'm going to now turn it over to Jackie Medina.
Hi again, my name is Laura Smith and I'm the principal at Radcliffe, and I just wanted to address a little bit about how we pivoted our structures going into distance learning. I think the strongest thing that Radcliffe had going for us was the strong relationships that we had with our teachers and our co-teachers. That was really, really the key to the success of it at Radcliffe. And I'm really proud to say that our model has changed a whole lot going to distance learning. And as Nichole has mentioned before, she's still actively co-teaching in the classrooms with the students, as well as doing pull-out groups at different times of the day. So their partnerships are still very, very strong, and they're still working together, even though they're not physically together, they're still guiding the class together and providing supports for all students. And that has also been boosted more because we now have a TK that is a full inclusion TK. And so I am definitely seeing that relationship building between our other learning specialist and our TK teacher and through third grade teachers as well. So I'm really proud to say our model has stayed very similar to what it was last year before distance learning. It's just now apart. Thank you.
This is, we did have a major shift in our staffing. Nichole here, she actually took a principalship this year in our district. So we lost a lot of our knowledge base, but we have hired a new TOSA to backfill that. But Nichole did move up, which is fantastic, but our team is sad to see her go. So that's the end of our questions. Of our presentation. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. And I will stop sharing. And all of the contact information is also there. We're all more than happy to answer any questions that you might have as they come up. If this is something that you and your district are embarking on, we will be happy to help.
There was another question that came up. Was there an increase in classified staff in this process? We did not increase our classified staff. We just restructured their time and assignments to support the co-teaching. When a special ed teacher was not in the classroom co-teaching, the instructional assistants would support the gen ed teacher as directed by both co-teaching team. And this year, actually, I think we decreased in our classified staff, but it was again based off of assignments and where we needed the support. Gerri, another question is, what does the baseline staffing look like in your TK inclusion class?
So TK inclusion is something new for us this year. It's something that we do have a preschool in our district, and that's where Nichole is this year as principal. And what we've done is we've embarked on, we have two in our district where it's a TK inclusive program. One's at Radcliffe. We have put in an additional I8 into the classroom to support with structures and support of those kiddos. We're very strategic of the kiddos that we choose to go into that program. They're kiddos that are showing that they're ready to be within the general education setting. They're kiddos that have been within our program already at Duncan, so they've had some time with other kids in schools. And then the service minutes from our LC teacher are the collaboration time based on their IEP goals and so forth. So it's one additional IA in the classroom, as well as the SBC, the Learning Center Teacher Support Collaboration.
The other question, Gerri, is I thought I heard you say you dissolved SDC classrooms. How was students with more moderate to severe behaviors get supported, as well as support for the teachers?
Yes, we did. Every site had, Ansoldo had K3, Radcliffe had a 3-5, and Starlight had both a K2 and a 3-5. So all of the school sites, the SDC classes were dissolved. For our more significant behaviors, we did have a BCBA within our district that supported the sites when needed. But really, we found actually that many of the behaviors decreased when they went into the general education classroom. We actually found for the majority that wasn't a problem. We were actually talking about this the other day when we were getting ready for the presentation, that we expected behavior to be a lot worse. And in the end game, it really wasn't. It was very acute growth and strength for us. And I think that the foundation of the PBIS at the sites was there. But if we had questions, if we had concerns, we did have a BCBA that we could call in and support, and as well as Nichole went in and support. I did tons of observations. We all kind of just, when we had those monthly meetings, we just talked about those kids' cases and we made plans.
I don't see any more questions coming through.
Okay, well, thanks for joining us. We appreciate it. I hope you guys are enjoying the conference. And sorry about the few tech issues at the beginning, but I'm glad we were able to work through those. And have a great Thursday.
Gerri, another question that came through is what are some strategies to support parents through the process of dissolving SDCs?
Oh, good question. So we had individual conversations with every single student and family on year 0 when we did that, and we developed a matrix of how services would be given. And really, we only had, I would say, all of the kiddos that we changed programs, I would say we had less than 5. The parents weren't beyond excited about the change in placement. In those 5, we had IEP meetings for everybody and changed the Bennett services. And then those 5, we had individual new conversations, and I can't remember offhand, but I would say only less than 2 or 3 of those didn't end up going into our program and continued into an SBC type setting. So it was actually a pretty easy conversation, a lot easier than I anticipated it being, to be honest.
There's another question that says, is there a plan to expand? Oh, yes, there is. Go ahead, Gerri.
Yes, there is. Yeah, so like I said in the beginning, we call them learning center sites, but we're moving towards the vocabulary of inclusive practices sites, because every site has inclusive practices to some extent. And so really what we need to do is we need to look at how to expand our inclusive practices at all of our sites. So we are bringing on another one of our sites this year, and we are expanding their inclusive practices. That site has a very structured autism class on that site. So we didn't do the same like we did the LP site. So we instead are, like I said, increasing the accessibility to inclusion for those kiddos. So the conversation is different, but it's a lot the same. So we're still using the same metrics. We're still using the same conversation of the SWIFT, the MTSS, and we have a plan. Our hope is that we have 18 elementary school sites in our district, and our hope is that we will get 9 of them with a very clear inclusive practices plan across the district in the next 3 years.
Our emails are there. And if you have any questions or just, want to learn about any other areas, we are here to offer what